Thank you for tuning into or watching the Choice, Change and Action podcast. My name is Simone Milasas and I am your host. Your choice creates your future. Every choice you make, action you take, you create a change for you and the world. Please enjoy this podcast. Don't take it too seriously. Don't take me too seriously. Don't trust me. Trust you. You are the one that knows what will work for you. And have way too much fun enjoying your choices. Hey everybody, and welcome to the overview of the podcast that I just did with Mr. Christopher Hughes. It was so much fun. It was so good. He is a really good friend of mine, and I've actually known him for like 17 years, and he's someone that I find so easy to talk to about any topic and about any subject, but really about sex. He has been there for me over the years and different things that have shown up in my life and has such a place of no judgment. So this podcast is called The Truth About Sex. Now, I've got like all of my notes that I just doodled down here as well. He was talking about like sex as a creative act, and we delve into that. We talk about masturbation. We talk about preferences, we talk about so many things, and about what you should look for, or what are you looking for, or what is it that you would like. So I would love you to join us on this podcast, and I do highly recommend listen to us on Spotify or wherever you listen to us, but you can also jump over to YouTube and you can see us on there as well. Chris acts out a few things, so you might want to check that out. While you're at it, can you do me a favor and subscribe to the YouTube channel, because it's going to help me get this podcast out there big and wide as well. And thank you so much for following. Thank you for being here. Subscribe to the show notes, etc. Do all of that, because then you get all the good stuff as well. So, because there's even some stuff that I want to go check out that he was talking about. Now, there is one more thing I wanted to mention, because I forgot to mention it in the podcast, because it wasn't released when we did the podcast, but now it would be. Chris has a podcast of his own, and it's called Between the Sheets. In the show notes, you will be able to find where you can listen to that. Okay. So it's called Between the Sheets. And guess what? It's going to be all about sex and everything. He's going to cover every single topic. So enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your choices. And thank you so much for being here, and enjoy this podcast with Mr. Christopher Hughes on The Truth About Sex. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Choice, Change and Action. Oh my goodness, it's still January. Well, I'm just going to let you know a little secret. It's actually New Year's Eve here in Australia, and we are pre-recording this because by the time you hear this, I will be in Cairo, Egypt, as one is. And I think I've got Mr. Christopher Hughes here. And where will you be? This is about the 11th of January this airs.
I will be in El Lugar, Costa Rica. The 11th, when this airs, I'm leaving for Costa Rica that day. So I may be flying. This is the flying motion. See, those are wings.
Flying on a jet plane. Don't know when you'll be back again. Remember that song?
Exactly. Yeah.
And if you would like to actually see us, we are on YouTube as well. So if you're just listening to us going, but what does he look like? What was he doing with his arms? Then you need to go over to YouTube to check us out. Okay. So, but thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us in this new year, 2024. I am super excited. I've been one of those people who, I think I had 2 days of just like, what the fuck is going on? And now I've just been super happy and elated and excited and enthusiastic. But I'm going to say, with the level of like this immense gratitude I have for so many people in my life and so many things that I've created and what I'm involved in and all of that. It just, those times when you just have those waves of gratitude. And Chris, you are definitely one of those people who I have a wave of gratitude for being here on the planet and for being my friend. Yeah. Did you catch that wave?
That was the wave motion. So this is flying, and that was waves.
And maybe I'm not going to tell you what you're doing.
Yeah, maybe I could be one of those interpreters, when they're making government speeches and they do like the.
Oh yeah, yeah, I like that.
I don't mean to make light of their profession, because they do an important job, but I'm just saying I could have a new calling.
So, Chris, I want to talk to you today about sex. S-E-X. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Well, no,
Well,
we've been
even
friends.
a long
Go for it.
time, like 17 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
But we both like the same thing, basically.
You mean penises?
Yeah.
Yeah, we both like
So,
penises. They're wonderful
so
things.
therefore, they are wonderful things. I totally agree with you. But I was just actually saying to someone too, Chris, I mean, I have been friends with you for 17 years and we've both been through a lot in our lives. And I would say you are one of my closest mates of being there, of, having my back and being there in the moments of like, what? And also in the elation and the joy and all of that and more. And I get this is also, just the beginning. Streaming out, trying to fix my dress. And you've always been so comfortable to talk to about sex, because for me it's like, man, it shouldn't be something that's hidden. And I get it. It's like there's people who get offended, or it's religious or cultural, or deemed inappropriate for certain things or whatever. And I grew up where we didn't get to chat about it at all. Like I remember I told you not long ago, I know I've told you before, I remember the first time I was masturbating, and well, the first time I remember clearly masturbating, let's say it like that, because I was on the family couch and my mother came home and she looked at me and she goes, "What are you doing?" And I went, "I don't know." Because I was like, I guess I didn't know. Like, it felt good, but I was like, I don't know. And then I remember going into my bedroom, and I'm grateful now because I didn't go to the wrongness of it, but I seriously remember thinking, oh, maybe that's not something I should do on the family couch. Maybe that's something I should do in the privacy of my own bedroom, And I did. I played lots as a young, young girl in my bedroom, etc., to discover my body and what friggin' just felt really good and was pleasurable, and having that. And I get it's such a, like, we have these amazing bodies, and these amazing bodies can receive so much pleasure and also gift so much pleasure. And yet, I mean, sex is one of the oldest topics in the world. It's one of the oldest industries in the world, the sex working industry, and it's shushed, and it's put under the table, and, told to, not talk about that at the dinner table, and not talk about that in certain company. So my
Oh,
question
it's not even. Oh, sorry. Go with your question, because they've got so much there that we can already talk about. But what's your
yeah,
question?
I know. Well, I was just going to say, like, what has it been like for you? Because I know so many stories about you. And what was it been like for you growing up, and how you were introduced to sex, you were with sex from like a little boy and onwards?
Oh, cool. Well, I love the story that you just told, describing, being walked in on masturbating for the first time. And as you know, I've got lots of stories like that for me, of things that occurred in my life where as a kid I was exploring masturbation or different things that I discovered with my bodies. Because you're right, like it's all about pleasure. And when we're at that young, tender age, our nervous system and our bodies are so sensitive, and they are on fire. Like, strange analogy, but imagine like olives. You're like, olives with sex? What are you
Mm-hmm.
talking about? Not many kids like olives because
Right.
they're too intense. But as we
Right.
get older, we develop a taste for it because our taste buds have sort of deadened, and we start to acquire tastes for things. Well, imagine being a kid. Like, we've all been there. Rewind the clock to when you were a kid and first started to experience those sensations in your body, and they were like
Yeah.
lightning through your whole system. They felt so
Yeah.
incredible. And most of us
Wow.
discovered masturbation or self pleasure, not just of our genitals, but of our whole bodies, kind of on our own and kind of by accident for the most part. Some
Mm.
exceptions, but that's generally speaking the case. So you have that. And then what most people went through is similar to you. They were walked in on or discovered, or they didn't realize it was something private and they did it somewhere public. Like, that was my case. I was like,
I
this
know.
is great. We should do it everywhere.
Can you tell that story? Can you tell that story?
Okay.
Because that's one of my favorites.
Well, There's a few. I mean, first of all, I realized I was different because most kids have the birds and the bees talk from their parents at an age where the parents are like, oh, they're starting to go through puberty. It's probably time we step them through this and tell them a bit about procreation and recreation and all those different things. I was different. They didn't have to wait to tell me. And it certainly didn't have to wait till puberty. I was like, right. So there's something here and I want to know more. Can I have diagrams? Will you tell me how this all works? Will you sit me down? And my siblings were horrified. And my parents were like, okay, we're going to have to sit down with Chris and have a really straightforward conversation because he's demanding answers. And that's how it started for me. And I'm really grateful too for my mother because I grew up in a very sex positive household. Like there was nothing in my mom's world, especially where sex was wrong or dirty. It was like something to enjoy and celebrate. And when I did masturbate publicly as a child, not realizing that was not normal, it was at school and I was sitting at my school desk and it was just a flat top with these iron poles and the bottom of the desk was open so everyone could see your legs, but I didn't think they could. I thought if I was sitting at my desk, no one could see if my hands were in my pants and my lap and I could have a great time and because school was boring. And the teacher called home and said, hey, you need to talk to Chris because this is kind of not the place for this to occur. And my mom, again, bless her, she sat me down. She was like, hey, I'm so happy for you that you've discovered this and you're having fun with this. Maybe just do it with people you know also enjoy it or on your own. And I love that she included with people you know also enjoy it because she was like, hey, you might do this with others and that's not wrong. So I didn't get that moment that a lot of people do where they were wronged and shamed for sex because so many people have a point in their life that was either religious or from their family or even cultural, depending on the country that you're from or based on your gender. Because let's face it, most women are not empowered in the world we live in to enjoy their bodies and enjoy sex. It's about being there for the man while he does his thing and you're just supposed to be a facility for him, so to speak. Again, generalizations, not everyone is like that, but most people had that moment of like, no, where you learned, don't talk about this.
Well, so let's do something here, okay? Because people listening may be going, yeah, that was me. So let's do something. All the projections and the expectations and the judgments that created the rejection of you with your body and the pleasure that you could have so that you would always be separated from that, will you now destroy and uncreate it? And everything that is, times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all nine shorts, boys, POVIDs and beyonds. And that's the Access Consciousness Clearing Statement. You can find out more about it at theclearingstatement.com. And we'll have that in the show notes. So subscribe to the show notes. But the basis of this is just because that occurred to you when you were 8, 10, 15, whatever it is, it doesn't mean that's what you have to choose today and live by that. You can eliminate all of those judgments and realize that none of that is real. And then what would you like to create as your future with your body and your future with your sexual orientation, whatever that may be, whether it's with someone, with lots of someones or on your own or whatever, you have the freedom to choose that. And that's why we're here talking today, because I wanted you guys to meet Chris on this level, because he is starting in 2024 to do a whole bunch of classes on basically the truth of sex. And he's got his first one in January, which again, we will have in the show notes and where you can register, and you can either go live to Mexico, who doesn't want to go live to Mexico, or you can jump online, and it's on the 20th and 21st of January in Mexico, and it's called In the Beginning. So what if even today, no matter how much sex you've had, no matter what you've done, where you've been, all the judgments that you've had, any of the fucking shame that you've had, because there should be no shame with it. It's like if you destroyed and uncreate that, and now you start from, you know what, I'm going to start my year with Mr. Christopher and my body and find out what this can be like as my future. And everything that is times a godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all nine, shorts, boys, POVIDs and beyond. Okay, I just needed to get that because you can create a blank slate right now.
Absolutely. You can create a blank slate. And that moment of shame does not have to be your reality. And it's way easier than you realize to get over it. The other thing, though, like, oh my God, that's my target with all of this, is to get to a place where we're no longer functioning from shame and wrongness, and we give ourselves permission to enjoy what we would like and enjoy whatever works for us. Because let's face it, there's so many conflictual messages when it comes to sex. It's wrong to have it, it's wrong to want it, but it's also validated if you are having it. Like, it's so weird. Are we supposed to be doing this or not supposed to be doing this?
That's
Like,
true,
based
isn't
on,
it?
it's so
And it's
bizarre.
like, and maybe you're having like, you know, and I want to say shitty sex as in like, it's not pleasurable for you or something, or you're not getting, you know, whatever, but you're still having it. So it's a ticking a box.
Yeah.
Dude, what if it was not a ticking a box?
or even like, okay, so I was hanging out with a friend yesterday, and she has recently gone through a breakup. And she was telling me about her New Year's Eve plans and how she was going to go to the bar and just dress really, really pretty and meet a bunch of new boys. Mm-hmm. And she said to me, should I take somebody home? And I went, yeah, if you want to, but make sure if you do, it's fun and you're not doing it to prove something. Mm. And she went, fuck. I'm totally doing this to prove something because I feel rejected from my breakup. And to me, that, like, whatever your motivations are for having sex, there's no right or wrong way. You do what works for you. If having sex and having an active sex life makes you feel beautiful, great, enjoy it. And what would it be like if you knew you were beautiful regardless? You didn't need the sex to show you anything. You enjoyed it when you enjoyed it, and you didn't have to do it. Because I know people who have very low sex drives or very limited sex drives. Like, there are people out there who are asexual, so to speak. They're not wrong. They just have a different way. What's really, really interesting about some of the asexual people that I've met is they still have a gender preference. Like, I was talking to this guy who describes himself as asexual. He has no real desire to touch anyone else's genitals, and he occasionally masturbates, but not very frequently. But when he goes on dates, he prefers to do it with men. He's romantically and emotionally attracted to men, but physically attracted to nobody. I find that so interesting. But he has walked through this life feeling so wrong and so confused because you're not supposed to be having sex, but if you don't want it, there's something wrong with you as well. Weird.
I love this, Chris. And if you're listening to this, please, like, whatever you're currently choosing is okay. But as Chris mentioned, make sure you're enjoying it. Like, it's working for you. Like, I have a friend of mine who was married many, many years ago, and I don't think she's had sex with anyone for like a really long time. But her preference is more so to play with women's bodies, but just their boobs. And that's what she enjoys. And that's okay. You know, and it has no desire for actual intercourse. And it's like, so what I'm going to ask, if you're listening to this too, it's like, what if you take a moment for yourself? You don't have to tell anyone. You can tell everyone if you want, but who gives a shit? It's like, and just have a look at what actually does work for you.
Yeah.
Like, what actually works for you. And
once you've had that look at what works for you, are you willing to communicate it with no shame and no judgment? Consent and communication to me are two of the most important things when it comes to sex, and they're surprisingly difficult areas for people. Like, one guy I was talking to about consent, and he was saying, I get how important it is, but to me, sometimes it kills the mood when you have this like negotiation beforehand.
Right.
I get that, but I've been in situations in my life, and I know a lot of people have, where you haven't clearly and explicitly stated your boundaries, and so you've ended up doing something in the heat of the moment that you actually didn't want to do, and you judged yourself for it afterwards. it is so valuable to be able to say what it is that you would like, because consent isn't like, as soon as we mention consent, what comes up for a lot of people is rape and sexual abuse. It is not that. Consent isn't about just saying, isn't it just about your nose? It's about your enthusiastic, emphatic, excited yeses.
Yeah.
And being able to say, hey, I like this. Let's try this. I really would like to do this. Will you tie me up and spit on me? That's what I'm really into. And be cool with whatever that is for you.
I like that.
Basically,
yeah. Because so let's delve a little bit more into that about that. Because you're right. It's like when people talk about consent, they go to, I mean, I was sexually abused when I think I was 19 in a park. And to tell you the truth, it's like it hasn't, it screwed me up a little bit at the time. But now it's like, Jesus Christ, I've been more gaslighted by my mother than sexually abused by this person that had more of effect on my life. But then I would say the times that I have not consented is I've had sex because I've gone, and I'm like, I'll just have sex because it's easier than saying no. But it wasn't like wasn't like it was hurting, or wasn't like it was just like, I don't really want to do this, but it's just going to be easier to have sex than say no.
Right.
Which is, I was sort of like, man, okay, that's what I'm choosing and that's what I chose. And usually I'm going to say it's because I, would have had too many drinks or whatever. I mean, Jesus, my days living in Sydney were interesting. They were colourful, I like to call them. I had a colourful life. So, and then you just would wake up and the thing that I looked at was never fulfilled. Like I didn't sort of go, wow, that was a friggin' awesome night last night. Like that was so much play and that was so much fun. And that's what I look at now. It's like, that desire for me for that play and that enthusiastic yeses. Actually, I really like the way you said that.
Yeah. I have had a lover for the past year that is probably the best sex I've had in my life so far. And I realized, I was speaking with our mutual friend, Gary Douglas, about it just like an hour and a half ago. And I was like, I realized that sex with this person has given me so much, because when I'm with him, I have zero judgment of my body. I enjoy my body, and I have the freedom to express my sexual reality.
Yeah.
And that is so rare. I mean, the scenario you're talking about of like being drunk and having sex because you don't want to say no and it's easier because you don't want to deal with their hurt feelings or how they could react, blah, 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 blah. I'd love for people to look at, what are you having sex for?
Yeah, great
question. Is it for you? Is it for them? Is it to feel good about yourself because you actually don't like yourself that much or don't like your body? What are your motivations here for the sex that you're choosing or not choosing?
Yeah. I love that. What are you having sex for? Because what if you didn't? And I know for myself, the past, long-term relationship I was in for quite a few years, my point of view was if we didn't have sex a certain amount of times, can't remember what the times were, but if we didn't have sex a certain amount of times during the week, then something was wrong. And it took me a while to get over that, probably like 3 years, because it was like, oh, what's wrong? What have I done wrong? What have da-da-da, which is just so insane. And then I actually was able to talk to him about that. And when we did, then it became more of a choice. Like you might have sex 3 times in a day, but then you wouldn't have sex for a week, or you'd have sex every day, or you wouldn't have, like it changed up, and allowing that change to occur and not just going, it's almost like, people go, oh, it's Thursday sex night, Saturday sex night, or something like that. Like making sure that there's.
I've known people that did that, and they had sex on a Wednesday night because Thursday was the day they washed sheets.
Oh, Jesus. There's so many ways to get around that.
Yeah, talk about clinical though, and like the negotiation side of it killing the buzz. I'd be like, what? It's on the it's like in the calendar, so we have to do it. I'm not going to want to have sex if that's the case.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about the I want to say, like, the way you spoke about your lover. I mean, I've had a similar situation now for almost 4 years, and it's just so joyful and so wonderful, and just keeps getting better and better and better and better. Like, and I guess the vulnerability and the gratitude, just like, there's no words to describe the gratitude I have, like this immense gratitude. And what's the first thing that you think people can start to look for that? Because for me, it's not in a relationship. Like, I'm not in a relationship with this person, and I have no desire to be in a relationship with this person.
Okay,
And I think
but
some people put them
he is a
together.
lover.
Yes.
But you're not in a conventional monogamous relationship like most people would consider. You enjoy each other when you're there, and when you're not, it's fine. Like, and I have a similar situation going on. And like, this gentleman I consider a lover of mine, and we have an amazing time and an amazing connection. And I'm so intensely grateful that we are not in a relationship as well. It's so cool. So what would I say to people is, well, again, get clear on what it is you would like and what you're looking for, and ask for somebody to show up who can be that for you. And so there's a guy I listen to a lot called Dan Savage, and he's got a brilliant podcast too called Savage Love.
Mm-hmm.
And he coined this term called good, game, and giving, the 3 Gs. You look for a partner who is good at it, like you enjoy how they have sex. Their game, which means they're open to try things. They're game to try whatever. And they're giving. It doesn't have to be all about them and you doing to them and their body. They're willing to be there for you and for your body and do things because it's what you would like. So, and I use that, and I take that from Dan Savage because I think it's a really smart way of looking at it. Finding lovers that are good, game, and giving. And what else? There's the universe is a generous, benevolent, and abundant place. And if you're willing to ask for what you would really like, it can be there. I was married for 10 years, and the sex in my marriage all but disappeared because there was so much judgment between us, and it became not fun. And I really thought when I got divorced, being in my 40s, that I was going to have a harder time entering the dating pool and finding lovers and doing this and that and the other. And I'm not as young and pretty as I used to be. All of those judgments and preconceived ideas, none of them turned out to be true. So for those of you out there as well, thinking like, no one's going to want to be with me, there's an ass for every seat. I guarantee you are somebody's cup of tea. And if you are clear with what you'd like, ask for it.
So people often tie sex and relationship together, though. And I mean, you were married for 10 years. I was in, a long-term relationship for 8 years. And after my relationship broke up, and I was pretty devastated about that breakup for, I think, a decent amount of time. Like, it was annoying me that I was devastated. But then I did start to have a look at what is it that I would like. And I was actually really surprised how many people would say to me, oh, are you going to have another relationship? Like, it was like, are you going to the shop to buy a new dress? And I was like, does it happen like that? And I really had to look at, what do I want? And then there was for me, I looked at, I mean, I remember you coming to my house, Chris, and because I live in the same house that I lived with my ex in, and you said to me, wow, this is a pretty big house for one person. And I went, I know, and I love it. And I do. I really like it. Like this, for this moment in the last 5 years or however long it's been, I really like this. But I had to look at, but I actually enjoy sex. So what do I choose then? Because I see so many people choose relationship because they do enjoy sex, and that's the way they end up having it. But then it ends up tied in knots, etc. So I don't know. Can you just sort of walk down that road of how people sort of look at relationship as one thing and sex as one thing, and have that freedom with that?
First of all, I would just like to say that, as you've mentioned, sex and relationship are different things. They're not the same thing. There's a lot of people who have relationships with no sex in them. And then there are the possibilities out there of having a sexual relationship, for lack of a better word, with somebody, and you don't have all the other stuff. You don't go to Sunday brunch with them necessarily. You don't have to go to the movies or decide what you're going to have for dinner on a Thursday night. None of that stuff is relevant to you. There are There are different possibilities. I really think as a culture, especially in the Western world, things are different now. So for those of you out there listening who, and I know there's lots of you who are recently single and have been out of the dating world for a long time, it is not business as usual anymore. Polyamory is now very normal. There's a lot of people in open relationships or in relationships with more than one person. And there's a recognition now that expecting one person to not only fulfill you sexually and fulfill you sexually on an ongoing basis, because let's face it, we get bored or we lose interest or we want different things. But assuming that person will fulfill you sexually, emotionally, mentally, and be someone you like hanging out with constantly, that is so much pressure and such a huge projection and expectation to have of this one person. With my ex, not only did we have that, but we'd had business together. So we had to work together, play together, live together, socialize together, and then we were supposed to want to fuck, and it didn't happen. Because inevitably, that is a lot. And again, for those of you out there who do have that and it works for you, awesome. Good for you.
But that's not the end game. That's not where you have to head for, because I know, I mean, I'm in my early 50s, and that's definitely what you get married, you have kids, you have all of that with one other person. And it never made sense to me. I always remember thinking, how can I look at somebody and go, I want to be with you in 50 years time? When I don't know what the hell I want to be doing in 50 years time. And I want to be doing it with you. And it was, like last night I was talking to my lover, and we were talking about something in 8 months' time. And I went, I love that I can talk to you about something in 8 months' time. And it doesn't have this tweak of this, projection or expectation. It's just more because I have a really busy schedule. It's more so like, let's add this in sort of thing. And it doesn't have this weirdness about it. And it's not this like promise of longevity. It's more the desire for more pleasure.
Yeah, totally.
So Chris, in the beginning,
there was sex.
Tell me about it, because that's the name of your class, In the Beginning.
That is the name of the class. So it is a bit of a funny title, and there's a spoof.
I love it.
Yeah. To me, there's a couple reasons why we've called it that. To me, sex is incredibly creative. Every time I choose to have sex, I learn something, my world expands, I get more awareness into different things. And so it is a creative act, and it opens the doors for me to receive more, and that gives me more possibilities for creation as well. So that's sex for me. For what we're told about sex, though, is that, I mean, let's face it, Christmas. We celebrate the birth of a man who was born to an unwed mother, but she didn't have sex. It was immaculate conception, because sex is the opposite of immaculate. Sex is dirty. So we as sinners all have to have sex to procreate, but this miraculous birth occurred without it. And that is supposed to be this ideal we're meant to aspire to, of being clean and pure and good people.
Yeah.
What if sex was the beginning and not the end goal? And the beginning of not necessarily a relationship and not necessarily procreation of another life. To me, sex is creation, not procreation.
I
think can be procreation.
Yeah. Watch out, kids. It can be procreation.
And if you want that, awesome.
Yeah. What if sex is a creative act? Can you just a little bit more on that, about how you see sex being a creative act for you?
Cool. Well, first of all, creative and creation is not the same as art and being artistic, because a lot of people relate those two. To me, creation is what occurs when you make a choice for something, and it opens the door to a whole bunch of new choices and new possibilities, and allows all the different energies of the universe to contribute to you. It's when you say yes to something. And by saying yes to that, it takes your life down a particular path and sets in motion an incomprehensible number of possibilities into play. So for me, the choice to have sex is creative because, as I say, every time I gain some awareness, I learn something, my world grows from each time. And that makes my whole world bigger. Not just my whole bigger. Sorry.
It's okay. I love it. Hey, you've also mentioned a couple of times here, and I know we're almost at the end of this podcast, but I just want to touch on this because, okay, how do I like the energies? Because so many people do look at sex and look at orgasm as good sex, orgasm as the result, as the conclusion, as the yay, we must have got it right if we both had an orgasm sort of energy. Whereas I love even the thought of it, like that's even that energy in my body when you just like, ooh, and you get turned on just by thinking about someone, or, a light touch, or making out with clothes on, or, all of those different things. So can you talk more about how someone can start to receive more with the energies at play?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a great book by Gary Douglas and Dane here, I guess, called Sex is Not a Four-Letter Word, but Relationship Oftentimes Is. It's one of the first books that Access Consciousness published. And Gary describes really beautifully in that book how to determine the energies sexually that turn him on and would be a contribution and a nurturance of him and his body. And he describes walking through I think a flea market and saying, okay, body, show me who has the energy that my body that we would like to play with. And he's a bit confused by who his body's showing him, because it's like a man. And he goes, oh, am I gay? No, that particular man has an energy that would contribute. And then he turns around and he sees like an old woman, and he's like, okay, so I'm gay and like old women. No. That person represents an energy that would be a contribution to me and my body. And then he looks and he sees a kid and he goes, great, I'm a gay pervert who likes kids. I'm a pedophile as well. Awesome. No. It's not having sex with the kid. The kid represents an energy that would contribute. It's not about putting your body together with those people, but it's looking for the different things. It's like when you go to the grocery store and you're hungry and looking for the things that light your body up and make it go, yeah, that's exactly what I'm after right now. I want a mango because right now the mango, there's something about it. I'm just like, And then when you have the mango, it's like, boom, this explosion, because it's an energy that your body was asking for. And you got to look at that with the partners that you choose as well. And sometimes when you're in a relationship, your partner contributes so many different things to you, but actually sexually you're not that compatible because they don't represent that energy for you. And hopefully you can have that conversation with them where you're allowed to explore that elsewhere. And if that's not for you, then that's fine too. But I could see a greater possibility personally. So it's about, go ahead.
Well, it's just like not making anything right and not making anything wrong. Like if you look at the history of sex and the history of relationships, it's been created for so many different, reasons, whether it's monetary or, owning land or whatever. And now it's like, I do think we are at this place that we have more choice than ever. And if we allow that choice to show up with no judgment, then wow, how much joy can we have? Like, where can we go to next?
Yeah.
And I love the way you described that. And we will put the name of that book, Sex is Not a Four-Letter Word, but Relationship Oftentimes Is, in the show notes as well. So don't forget to subscribe to the show notes, because you get all of this, yummy information, a nice summary, and any of the questions that we've been asking in there. And I really like that analogy, because if you start to look at what your body is attracted to, because we think, for instance, I can't tell you the amount of women who are tall that always look for a man who's taller than them. Is it nice being with a guy who's taller than you? Sure. But for me, that's not a necessity. it's just nice. And it's like, so then they cut out all the different energies, or maybe you go, I only like blonde hair, or I only like, whatever it is that you've decided that you like. But there's a whole lot of other energies that are available for you in your body that you might be avoiding, and find out would be a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, having a type is so restrictive.
Not having
It's
it
funny.
tight, having a
No,
type.
having a type is like, it's like I've got a friend who I adore, and I could draw you a picture of who his ideal man is, because
Right.
it's so prescribed based on the height and the percentage of body fat and the amount of muscle and the amount of hair. But it's all about how they look. It has nothing to do with who they are. And I don't get it personally. I don't see those things. Like I was having dinner with a lover last night, and he kept referring to different parts about himself that I guess are expressed through his appearance. Like he's Arab, and he's hairy, and he's shorter, and these sort of things. And I looked at him and I went, I don't see any of that when I'm with you. I don't look at you and see a short person. I don't see a hairy person. I don't see
a hairy dude.
Yeah, or an Arab person. I just see you. Yeah. And I enjoy you.
You. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, kings and queens, or whatever you are, whatever you're choosing to be today, it's like, this is available for you. That energy that Chris is talking about. And I really want to say that I did not live my life like this. I chose, when I was much younger, I definitely chose men or boys, I should say, that's at that age, not for the energy that was going to be a contribution. If anything, I chose men who were judgmental of me and my body, because I was, and it matched the judgments that I had. And I would literally hear in my head going, oh, I hope my friends like him. And that's how I would choose. If my friends like them, I would choose. So I feel like I've been there, done that. And man, now I'm choosing on a much different way. And I also don't have this sense that I have it right. I just know that I'm enjoying what I'm choosing. And I think that's what I would like everybody to get to. So I know I'm doing a bit of a sales pitch here, but I implore you to go to this class with Chris and find out something else, and find out something more, and find out what's going to work for you and your body, because he is just such a gift. You can ask Chris absolutely anything, and he'll go down that road with you with absolutely no judgment. So we will have the details of your class in the show notes, and it's going to be soon. It's in 10 days or something in Mexico City, and it's called In the Beginning with Mr. Christopher. And yeah, we'll have where you can locate Chris and everything in the show notes, and his Instagram and all of that. And Chris, is there anything else here that you would like to add for all the listeners?
Well, when we die, we're in the coffin for a really long time. No, just all of us. When we're dead, we're going to be in that box for a long time. So you might as well have a bloody good time now.
Exactly.
Like, stop worrying about everything and go enjoy.
Hey, on that note, just because you're one of my best mates, I don't want to be in a coffin. I want to be cremated and just thrown in the ocean. Okay. Got it?
Okay, cool. I'll do that for you. I just want to be like in a cotton sack and chucked in the backyard in the garden or something. I don't want to be pumped full of chemicals and put in a mahogany.
No.
I don't care. Just, I'm done with my meat suit when I'm done. So if you want to stuff it and put it in the corner, do it.
Oh, dear Lord. That
Make
would be
me a
funny.
scarecrow in your garden.
Exactly.
This is now scarecrow, not flying. Okay.
So
this was flying earlier. Flying will be with the gentle undulation to the sides. Now this is scarecrow.
Well, it
not
could
Jesus,
be like just.
Well, with that,
I was going to
that
say,
could
you're
be
sort
Jesus
of like
crucified.
hanging on the cross.
Well, no, but you'd have to have your hands turned out. If they're turned down, that's scarecrow. If they're like this, do you know? Every Easter, I wear a particular brooch, and it goes on my lapel, and it's a gold nail. Just looks like a nail going through my lapel, and I wear it on Easter because I think that's really funny, and almost no one gets it. What's wrong with you people?
Oh my God, you crack me up. I adore you, Chris, so much. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Ciao tutti.
Well, did you like this podcast? Love it? Hate it? Inspired by it? Can you do me a favor? Can you please write a comment, share it, like it? If you are listening on Spotify or Apple, could you tick a few stars for us? Leave a review. It's all such a contribution, and I am immensely grateful. Follow us on Instagram at Choice, Change and Action, and drop into our DMs and let us know what you would like next. When you subscribe to the show notes, you will receive a brief summary and any questions or tools we used and links to anything we discussed during the show. It might make your life easier. What if we asked for that? A life of ease, joy, and glory.